plus one more day and minus one more Russian refinery. This one was kaputted in Yaroslavl city of Russia. There are multiple of the videos presented to us by eyewitnesses. While this refinery is not the biggest one, capable to accommodate roughly 6.2 million tons of fuel per year, but it's not the smallest one at the same time. At the same time, for this specific region of Yaroslavl, this is the crucial and the only one unique facility which is capable to produce fuel. So from now on, one more region of the Russian Federation will be in desperate with shortage of fuel. Well, their Ukrainian drones hit VT-6 vacuum distillation unit. And correction here, this unit alone was capable to process 6.2 million tons of fuel, but the entire capability of this refinery is 15 million tons of fuel per year, which makes it the fifth largest in Russia. And what is interesting about this particular case, that Russian official authorities have already announced the technogenic cause of this mishap. So they say that it was some sort of the internal accident and not Ukrainian drones. Do I believe it? Well, everything might happen in Russia. After all, it's a very unpredictable country, but I guess finally it was the job done by Ukrainian drones. And Russian officials just used the internal smoking at the wrong place reason for excuse. And in this way, they're telling Russians, don't look up. Yeah, refinery is definitely smoking, and I take those pictures, guys, from my Telegram channel, so you may check it out in the video description just below. Well, also I have the information that Sukhodolnaya pumping station and another oil pipeline nearby, near to that big refinery, was struck as well. The station is part of the main Kybyshev-Lysychansk pipeline with a nominal capacity of 7,000 cubic meters per hour. And also we have the confirmation from this place from NASA fire satellite detectors firms. Yeah, we don't have many more photos from the place, like for example this one, because it's further away from the city, but if you check out this image, you may see that the other smoke cloud is coming from the different area. It confirms that not just the refinery was hit, but also pumping station with crucial oil infrastructure. So this is this pumping facility that I showed you before on the images, and this is the pipeline itself. This is very important for the Russian export, because this pipeline goes to Novorossiysk port, which was kaboomed recently. Yeah, the piers was kaboomed by Ukrainian drone boat, so the Russian oil export was disturbed, and here is one more hit on the same pipeline. It is crazy. Ukraine knows exactly the most vulnerable parts of the Russian oil and fuel infrastructure. So it all hurts the Russian economy, and here you can see the graph of India's purchases of the Russian oil. Each column for each month, black is the oil from Russia, the rest are the other countries' distributioners. So for India, Russia is one of the biggest oil suppliers. But Ukraine, with its own drone sanctions, makes it more difficult for Russia to supply that oil to India. And not just to India, I guess the same graph goes to China as well. Alright, and we have this video coming from Saratov region of Russia. Something is smoking. Locals report about the chemical plant which is used to produce shells for the Russian army. For now, I cannot prove this information. I'm waiting for more data coming from the place, but it looks like something big is burning there. And it's not the oil refinery, because otherwise we would see a black cloud. Here the cloud is much lighter, definitely looks like some sort of the chemical fire there. And according to the multiple sources, Russia lost almost 40% of the refinery capabilities. It is crazy, just imagine this number, 40%. Well, some say 38, some say 40, but 2% difference is not a big deal. And many of those refineries, they're definitely hard to repair. Russia is in lack of the spare parts. Most of them are being produced in Western countries. Well, there are still ways for Russia to obtain those spare parts via third countries, but those ways are not easy ones. So since August, Ukraine definitely harmed Russian refinery infrastructure a lot, and it grinds down the Russian economy. It declines way faster than expected, especially in the regions outside Moscow and St. Petersburg. You see, Russia is very huge and they need fuel to deliver goods all around the country. That is how they keep their economy running. But now we see that in the regions which were not affected, by the way, by Ukrainian drone strikes, I mean, their refineries are working, but they supply their fuel to Moscow and St. Petersburg. At the same time, they have their own fuel crisis. That is how Russia lives. Power in Russia is very centralized around Moscow. The rest of the regions, they're slaved. They are like those colonies. And Russia is the modern-day empire that wants to take more territories to gain more resources. But at the same time, we see that in 21st century, it doesn't work like that. And all of the previous empires of that type, they have already collapsed. Only Russia remains like that. Well, I guess not for a long time if Ukraine continues those strikes on Russian infrastructure. And yeah, here media says about 38% of the Russian oil refineries, and it's just the beginning. Ukraine operates mainly with drones, but soon there's gonna be something even bigger. But Russians also use their drones to hit Ukrainian infrastructure. For example, just yesterday they hit this train in Chernihiv Oblast. The train was carrying some of the fuel and even some of the army vehicles. What exactly those vehicles are, I'm not sure, but vehicles were okay. The fuel, however, ignited and there was a fire. So you can see Ukrainian locomotive down here. And here we have the fire, so they managed to hit this train, definitely. I may confirm it, but about the vehicles, judging on the reports coming from our volunteers, they're fine. But here we may see that fuel wagons definitely were burning. It is not the first time that Russians are hitting Ukrainian infrastructure, but it's the first time that moving target was hit by a Russian Shahid drone. Because Russians start to use remote control systems on those drones, so they're able to control Shahids flying elsewhere. Also, as you saw, they used the thermal camera. And just to remind you, this Shahid drone was shut down. Some of the components were produced elsewhere in Europe, in the United States of America, and they may operate without any sort of the SIM cards with the help of the 2 Shahid drones at least. So one Shahid drone is flying at a distance of 150 kilometers and it receives the signal from the control center. Also, it sends the signal and receives it back from this kamikaze Shahid drone, which makes the total distance from control center to the target 220 kilometers. Again, controlled flight of the drone. This is very dangerous. So one drone has this purpose of transmitter and receiver flying somewhere in the safe area. Russians call this guidance system MC-236. As you might see, drone technologies constantly develop and Russians always put something new, but the Ukrainian side also does similar stuff. I just see that our partners, they're not taking the threat seriously, I mean in Europe at least, yeah? And during the last military exercises we see the difference in approach of the Russian army and of joint forces of some of the European countries who took the part in their military exercises. Yeah, they put those tanks and artillery there, but without anti-drone warfare, without drone protection. Unfortunately, guys, those great-looking vehicles may not live for a very long time, because you see what is happening on the front lines. If Russia starts its attack on NATO, they'll use, first of all, FPV drones and other drones, Landsets, Shahids, as you saw, and only after that they will attack with their own tanks. And thus Europe has the same amount or competitive amount of the drones and everything against Russian tanks and armored vehicles and infantry? The answer is no. The realities of the modern-day war are different, and for drones it doesn't matter whether it's Abrams or T-62 tank. A Ukrainian war shows that all tanks may burn. The only difference that Abrams tank probably will save life of the crew compared to Russian T-62 tank or T-72, T-90, it doesn't really matter. Russian tanks are completely not safe for the crew, but still they are good battle tanks. And Ukraine also continued to use the Soviet types of the tanks quite effectively. So of course Europe should put way more attention on drone army development and the unit's protection against the drone strikes. Yes, those tanks may look ugly if you put the proper drone protection, but who cares? They should be effective and withstand the drone strikes. And yes, later on you may remove the protection for parades or something. Also, I see that Russians are targeting Ukrainian infrastructure close to the Russian border, within 50 kilometers at least. This is Chernihiv Oblast substation was really important, and Russia continued to black out Ukrainian towns, cities, villages. It's their usual tactics since the beginning of the war, but now they intensify their strikes. And as you may see, everything of that was filmed on Russian surveillance drones, which may also fly deep into Ukrainian territory. That's why it's important for Ukraine to get more of the FPV air defense drones, which could fly also at this high altitude. And Russians even used their Lancet drones to hit, for example, this gas pumping station somewhere in Chernihiv Oblast as well. So it is not just about Donbass or southern Ukraine, it's about entire Ukraine, especially those regions which are bordering Russia. Guys, sometimes I get questions about Ukrainian ballistic missile programs or long-range missile programs. Well, guys, Ukraine is just in lack of the financial resources to put them into every project. So Ukraine is focused, for example, on Neptune production, but still Ukraine is unable to produce those missiles very massively. No. So this is the tool which is proven, which is in operation, and also there is the hope for Ukrainian FP5 Flamingo missile. That is not a government project, but was made with part of the government finances. So there is the Wall Street Journal article. They say that Ukraine is in lack of funds for mass production of its own missiles, including ballistic missile projects like, for example, Grom 2. The report notes that Kyiv has the capacity but not the resources. So technology, production capabilities, they're out there, but not enough funds to buy equipment, materials, to pay everything. And this expert says that Flamingo would not dramatically change the course of war. Well, I agree and disagree. What he means dramatically change the course of war? There will be change with Flamingo, for sure. Russian refineries, for example, they will burn brighter and harder and further away. And little by little it adds to the troubles which are happening in Russia, including the Russian army itself, including the Russian economy. So this missile is after all must have. It is one of those major tools for Ukraine to withstand Russian aggression. Alright, there is the situation with Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Yesterday Zelensky in his statement said that it is critical. Power plant still remains without main electrical supplies, just emergency generators are working for already 1 week. Well, here we have the official report from the International Atomic Agency. They say that while the plant is currently coping thanks to its emergency diesel generators, it is still the last line of defense, and there is no immediate danger as long as they keep working. Well, Zelensky says that it's the danger. Here they soften the rhetorics, yeah? It is not clearly sustainable situation in terms of nuclear safety, however they say, yeah, so it's difficult for them too. Yeah, international atomic agencies like United Nations, let's say they're tasteless, they may just provide their own recommendations, and this organization has absolutely zero levers to act on Russia. And Director Grossi says that the current status of reactor units and spent fuel is stable as long as emergency diesel generators are able to provide sufficient power to maintain essential safety-related functions and cooling. So for him, it is stable. Yeah, for Zelensky, it's not stable. For Russians, they don't even tell about Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Yeah, just yesterday, I think Lavrov stated that this power plant belongs to Russia. That's it. It seems like they don't really care about the safety of the station after all. So what's the real deal? Why did Russians put a nuclear power plant to emergency supplyment? Well, they want to put a new power line to the station. They want to align one more reactor and put it out from idle power to feed occupied regions of Ukraine plus some of the Russian territories. That's the main thing. They're now montaging this power line to the station. It goes from Mariupol. Yeah, there were some of the reports from both sides about the shelling of the station or near the station, but we already reviewed with you several videos ago the satellite images. No shelling was spotted. But Russians indeed were working in substation of nuclear power plant, which means that they're in electrical circuit of the station, moving with vehicles and so on. So if everything goes well, they will switch the station back to its normal power in the coming days. If not, well, there could be circumstances because diesel generators, they are not forever out there. They cannot work all the time without any sort of the maintenance. However, still there are some of the backup generators. As Atomic Agency says, 9 additional units in standby mode and 3 in maintenance currently operating 8. So pretty much a lot of the standby generators, but Russians switch them sometimes into the circle and shut down those working ones to ensure continuous availability. But still, I don't like this situation, guys. Then they play with the biggest nuclear power plant out there in Europe, at least in Eastern Europe. This is a huge station, guys. Chernobyl is a kindergarten compared to Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. And the fact that it's been occupied and located very close to the front lines is very, very bad. A Ukrainian Magura 5 boat was found by Turkish fishermen. They put it out from the water to the shore. There is still some of the equipment. You can see gimbal, 1, 2, 3 antennas. This one was put at the back. Well, I wouldn't touch this boat if I was a Turkish fisherman because there is lots of the TNT, could be at least, inside. Nevertheless, they deliver it to the shore, but the strange part is coming next because they put it back to water and kaboomed. Yeah, there is the drone boat and it was kaputted. I don't know for whatever reason they did it, but they did it. At first we manipulate it elsewhere and later on go back to the sea. Boom. Probably guys who work with TNT decided not to demine it or something and to kaput it instantly. Maybe they took some of the antennas, gimbals from the drone. It seems like Ukraine just lost control of one of the drone boats during the attack on Tuapse or even before, and this drone was just floating there in the sea and fishermen decided to pick it up. Wow, such a beautiful airplane. Antonov 124, Ruslan from Antonov Airlines, Ukrainian jet transport airplane. Nice landing in Leipzig. By the way, it was filmed yesterday. There was the flight from Tel Aviv, and it is great that Ukraine has its own cargo airline capable to deliver some of the interesting goods. Like for example, here you may see some of the container, and we know that Israel already supplied Ukraine with Patriot system. At least one, plus some of the missiles were delivered to Ukraine. This info has already been confirmed by President Zelensky. Right, so yesterday there was the info coming that Ukraine was capable to kaput Russian S-400 system radar in Crimea. Well, it was officially reported by Ukrainian special forces who allegedly used some of the drones there. But I'm still waiting for some of the images, confirmations from the Russian side as well. So far, they didn't specify the loss. So even though it's the official information, but it is coming only from Ukrainian side, so I'll have to wait more to finally confirm it. And guys, about some of the political news, I now try to separate this topic from this channel. Well, if really Donald Trump says something new about Ukraine, the situation update, I will tell about it. But the news about politics and not only you may find on my another channel. It is called Captain Dennis, and there I stream almost every day and I film videos about American politics and not only. So please check it out in the video description below. We're almost at 20,000 subscribers. That's great. And in general, my friends, if you want to support the job that I do, please follow me on Patreon. You may find it in the video description also below, or just join membership of this YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your kind support. It is very important for me because you keep me running, filming content elsewhere on all of the platforms. Now I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.